Chapter 76. Alice muttered to herself. They are wearing the same scarf of a limited edition brand. Who would believe that they happened to run into each other? May scratched her head and seemed to understand. Karen quickly ran back to the place where she had just been separated from Kevin. She had never been like this before. She could not wait to see him. When Karen ran to the place where they separated, there was no trace of Kevin. She walked around again but still couldn't find him. Karen was anxious. Then she quickly took out her mobile phone and called Kevin. She heard his low and sexy voice. What's wrong? Where are you? I'm at the place where we separated, but I couldn't find you, Karen said in a hurry. Kevin paused and then asked, Why are you back? Karen did not think much and said, Because I want to go shopping with you. Kevin asked again, Aren't you afraid of being watched by someone? Karen pursed her lips and said gently, Don't I still have you? I'm not afraid, as long as you're here. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Karen became more anxious and asked, Where are you? Kevin's responded, Turn back. Listening to the voice, she looked back and found that Kevin was standing a few steps behind her and looking at her quietly and gently. Looking at him, for some reason, Karen felt relieved. Kevin walked to her side and gently held her in his arms. He gently held her head and thought to himself, I've been here all the time. As long as she was willing to turn around, she could see him standing where he was waiting for her. At this moment, Karen felt warmth in her heart, and she snuggled in his arms like a kitten. It's great to have him here. The public had thought that the scandals surrounding Goop Corp seemed to cause destruction to Innovative Tech. The employees of Innovative Tech were busy looking for new jobs, but the management team of Innovative Tech was calm as if there were no problems. In the president's office on the 23rd floor, Kevin stood by the window, quietly overlooking the city metropolis under his feet. Innovative Tech was established earlier, but it developed very slowly. If he hadn't bought this land and built such a building in his early years, he might not be able to live as well as he was now. Over the years, the economic development in Chatterton Town had been fast, and the housing price had risen sharply. Innovative Tech's building was located in the center of the city center, and it was the prime area that many people wanted. The price of this building was now 1,000 times higher than when he bought it. The reason why Rovio Corporation Inc. purchased Innovative Tech was not because of its product, but because of the land that everyone wanted. Thump, thump. Nick knocked on the door and came in. Boss, everything went smoothly according to your plan. Many companies have taken the initiative to terminate the contract, and they will not cooperate with us in the future. Their action saved a lot of work for us to get rid of hypocrites. Okay. Director Kyle did not turn his head and gently agreed, which made it hard to picture what he was thinking. Kevin did not give the next order. Nick waited for a while and asked, Do you want to announce to the employees that Rovio Corporation Inc. has already bought over Innovative Tech? Let's announce it. Kevin threw out the words decisively and briefly. Nick paused and said, Boss, Charlie wants to meet you. Kevin looked back at Nick and said calmly, I will not meet with anyone from the Goop Corp, don't you remember? Nick knew that Charlie really angered his president. It was very easy for his president to deal with someone like Charlie, as easy as snapping his fingers. As for Charlie, he was still trying to find a way to see Leo Kyle, but he didn't know that he had already seen Leo Kyle and had offended him badly. Because Charlie didn't know that he had offended Leo Kyle, he was still trying to meet Leo Kyle. A person would be stupid to think that he had always been at an advantage. In fact, he had lost. Nick continued to say, Polaris spread some scandals a few days ago, saying that you are a playboy. Charlie is trying to set you up with a woman. At the mention of Mia, the calm expression on Kevin's face finally eased a little. He sighed silently and said, Send your staff to keep an eye on that girl. Don't let her cause trouble again. If I catch her next time, I will take her back. Only the little daughter of the Kyle family dared to do such a thing and ruined their president's image. However, their president just sighed helplessly. After the news that Rovio Corporation Inc. had already purchased Innovative Tech was released by the president, every employee was excited. The reason why they were excited was not only because Innovative Tech was bought over by the big company, but also because they kept all the staff in place, and everyone's welfare and salary would be improved according to their qualifications and achievements. Oh my God, it turns out that our Innovative Tech was bought by Rovio Corporation Tech half a year ago. President Kyle is the person from Rovio Corporation Inc. who took over the business management. Yeah. The most fortunate thing is that we can continue to stay in Innovative Tech, and we have the support of Rovio Corporation Inc. We are no longer afraid that the Goop Corp will bully us. Karen, who had never liked gossip, also discussed with her colleagues happily for a while, before returning to her desk. Rovio Corporation Inc. had bought Innovative Tech half a year ago, so Charlie would not be able to make things difficult for Innovative Tech. For Karen, it was not only a stable job, but also a raise. She was no longer worried about what Charlie would do to Kevin. It was really exciting news. The uncertainty of her colleagues dissipated in an instant, and everyone was excited because of this great news. They didn't have to quit their jobs and head elsewhere anymore, but they would have better employee welfare in the future. What great news this is. Rovio Corporation Inc. was such a stable and strong company that so many people couldn't get into. This matter was simply a free lunch for the older and loyal employees of Innovative Tech. Charlie made such a big scene, but Kevin looked calm. Karen thought Kevin had no way to deal with Charlie. It turned out that he had such a big backer behind him. Of course, he was not in a hurry. Rovio Corporation Inc. was the support that everyone wanted. For the Goop Corp, which was one of the best in the country, Rovio Corporation Inc. was also a peak they could only look up to but never succeed. In this way, what Charlie had done before made him seem like a clown. If he wanted to cooperate with Innovative Tech in the future, he would have no chance. Chapter 77. Once the big news was announced, their sales department would probably be so busy with work. Karen felt so happy just thinking about it. She fixed her clothes and sat straight, ready to welcome a new job in her best state. Karen was happy, but she did not forget about Kevin. She sent him a message. You've already known that Goop Corp could not play tricks with Innovative Tech at all, but you did not tell me. Her text was a little flirty, but she did not realize it. Soon she received a reply from Kevin. You should have trusted me. Yes, he told her to trust him earlier. It was just that she trusted too much in the influence of the Goop Corp, but she did not have 100% confidence in Kevin. Karen sent another message. Bad guy. Soon she received another word from Kevin. Yes? Huh? Kevin's reply made Karen roll her eyes. What does that mean? Did he admit that he was a bad guy? Was he a bad guy who was cold and did not like to talk? Although Kevin replied with just a yes, the corners of Karen's lips could not help but move into a sweet smile. Of course, she didn't know that the man who sent her the simple text was also grinning. He probably looked extra charming. Not long after that, the HR department sent out another message. Today, all the employees would be taking the day off. In the evening, the company invited all staff members to the Baiha restaurant for dinner. The company hoped that everyone could celebrate the company's new direction. President Kyle would also attend the dinner party. Only a super-rich company like Rovio Corporation Inc. could do such a good thing. Previously, Innovative Tech paid for staff members to a luxurious resort for a holiday. Karen's colleagues were so excited that they chanted, Long live President Kyle, long live Rovio Corporation Inc., long live Innovative Tech. Everyone cheered and packed up. The female employees hoped to go back and dress themselves up beautifully. There were not many opportunities to show off in front of the president. Karen was cleaning up her desk when she received a text message. When she opened it, it was from Kevin. 2 short words. Come up. Come up. Karen looked at the 2 words on the screen of her mobile phone and thought that Kevin was asking her to go to his office. But why did he ask her to his office? Although she wasn't sure, Karen packed her things up slowly. She wanted to go to Kevin's office secretly after her colleagues leave. Karen, do you want to go with me? May asked when passing by Karen's desk. Before Karen answered, Alice Cole rushed over and pulled May away. Karen is not available. You better go with me. After packing up, Karen looked around and checked that the colleagues in the office had left. Then she picked up her bag and walked out of the office. When she walked to the elevator, she looked around again to see if there was anyone else. When she did not see anyone else, she was relieved to walk into the elevator and pressed the button to the 23rd floor. No matter how careful she was, she could not escape the gaze in the dark. The 2 cold eyes watched her enter the elevator and watched the indicator light of the elevator stop on the 23rd floor. Then that person took out the mobile phone and sent a message. Our plan can commence. When Karen arrived at the 23rd floor, the elevator opened. She popped her head out to check if there was anyone else. Mrs. Kyle, don't worry. Everyone has left. Amelia came over and said with a smile. Karen smiled awkwardly. Are Nick and you staying behind with Director Kyle? Amelia said with a smile. How can we leave when Director Kyle was still busy? Do you know what he wants from me? Since Kevin was busy with other things, Karen thought it was better not to disturb him. Well, it's between the husband and wife. Director Kyle won't tell us, Amelia said and led Karen to Kevin's office. Amelia's words made Karen blushed. Outside Kevin's office, everyone had left. The whole floor was empty. Kevin was a really good boss. His other secretaries had left, but he was still busy. She wasn't sure what was he busy with. Of course, as an employee of a normal department, she certainly didn't know what the mighty president of the company was doing all day long. If she knew, she would not be a small employee of the sales department. Amelia added, Director Kyle is in the office, so I won't accompany you in. Okay, Karen nodded. It was Karen's first time in the president's office. Although the man sitting in the office was her husband, there was still some awkwardness in her heart. She knocked on the door politely and didn't open the door until she heard the word, please come in. Kevin was on the phone. When he saw her coming in, he glanced at her and gestured for her to wait for a while. Kevin had been talking on the phone in English the entire time. He used some professional words, so she could not understand them. She looked around. The decorative style of the office was similar to Kevin's taste. They were both simple and neat. A few minutes later, Kevin's phone call was over. He looked at Karen and asked, why don't you sit down? Karen knew that this was the president's office. Since he didn't ask her to take a seat, as a small employee, she didn't dare to sit casually. Do you need me for anything? Karen ignored his question and threw a question back at him. Did he have to find her for something? Kevin raised his eyebrows slightly and said, Stay with me to work overtime. You want me to work overtime here? Karen pointed to herself and responded, I am an employee of the sales department, not your secretary. I'll double your wages. Kevin glanced at her, lowered his head, and focused on his work. Double the wages. This line was very attractive. For the sake of money, she simply accepted it. She grinned and asked, What can I do? Stay with me, Kevin said without looking up. Karen's face turned red again. His tone was very strong, but when it reached Karen's ears, she felt a sweetness in the tone. She said in a very soft voice, Oh, okay. She hoped that she could spend more time with him and get to know him more, so that she could have a better relationship with him in the future. Now she could accompany him and get double paid for it too. This was a good thing to kill two birds with one stone. How could she not be willing to do so? But Kevin was really busy, and he had no time to talk. He kept receiving calls. Chapter 78. Now Karen finally understood why Kevin often spoke in foreign languages when he worked, because he came from Rovio Corporation Inc. To have Rovio Corporation Inc. appoint Kevin as the president of Innovative Tech, his strength must be affirmed. Moreover, observing Kevin's work over the past few days, he was indeed extraordinary. Karen fixed her eyes on Kevin's face as she was thinking. He always wore a pair of gold-framed glasses. He rarely took them off unless he was going to bed. He looked mature, yet reserved wearing glasses. Without glasses, he looked gentler. However, whether he wore glasses or not, it could not cover up his elegance and his good-looking face. Suddenly, Karen thought of a joke that was popular on the internet. The man with glasses looked gentle and refined, but in fact, he was a beast in disguise. Karen thought of what happened on the day of the charity party. That day, Kevin made her scared, and he was really a little beast. No, Karen quickly shook her head and patted her face. How could she think of him like that? Since she chose to forget what happened that day, she shouldn't think too much. Karen was lost in thought and did not notice Kevin's gentle gaze on her. She shook her head, patted her face, frowned. Then she pursed her lips. The expressions on her face were varied. Obviously, she was immersed in her own world. Kevin looked at her curiously. What was the world inside her? Could she let him in? Maybe because Kevin's gaze was too intense, Karen finally came to her senses. She looked up and saw Kevin's eyes. She quickly turned her head away and instinctively wanted to escape from his sight. What are you thinking about? No, nothing. Kevin did not continue to ask. He turned his attention back to work again. Since Kevin was busy with his work, Karen did not want to disturb him, so she sat quietly. However, after a while, Amelia brought a box of snacks and milk. She looked at Karen and said with a smile, Mrs. Kyle, President Kyle asked me to prepare them for you. After thanking Amelia, Karen walked over to Kevin's desk with snacks and asked him cheerfully, Would you like some? Okay, Kevin responded. Karen pushed the plate near him. Let's eat a little before you work. Machines can't run without stopping for 24 hours, and you are just a human. Feed me? Kevin said without looking up. Feed him? When Kevin said such cheeky words, why did he appear so serious? Karen didn't understand whether it was because he didn't understand how cheeky feeding another person was or he wanted to tease her. Her heartbeat is faster than usual. However, looking at him, he was busy with his work. Since he didn't look at her, he certainly wouldn't have other ideas. He just didn't have time. Well, she admitted that she's overthinking again. Karen picked up a piece of cake and brought it to Kevin's mouth. Open your mouth. Kevin looked at the data on the computer screen, and he still listened to her and took a bite. He took a big bite and, unknowingly, finished half of the snacks in one bite. After he finished eating, Karen fed him more. She didn't know if it was unintentional or intentional, but when he bit the snack, Karen's finger was bitten by him. He did not use much strength. He sucked it gently like a baby taking milk, and the feeling of numbness instantly spread throughout her whole body. She was frightened that she quickly withdrew her hand, and her face turned red again. Kevin's eyes finally left the computer. He looked at Karen and said lightly, Are you kidding me? Karen? Was she overthinking again? In fact, he didn't mean that at all. She took another piece of cake and handed it over. Then you can have another one. Is it boring to stay here with me? Kevin asked her seriously. I'm not bored. She would be alone when she gets home. At least in the office, she could talk to him, so she felt that there was nothing wrong with this new arrangement. The most important thing was the wage increment he just mentioned. Karen. Kevin called her name again. His voice was still magnetic and charming. She had been with him for 2 or 3 months. It was always very nice to hear him calling her name. Yes? As soon as the word yes came out, Kevin stretched out his arm and tried to pull her in to sit on his lap. Karen was so scared that she reached out her hand to press against his chest. His body was also stiff. When she spoke, her voice began to tremble. Kevin, don't do this here. What do you mean you don't want to do this here? He reached out and adjusted the hair on her forehead. He stared at her and asked her seriously, Karen? Just as she had thought he was going to do what he had done that night, she had spoken instinctively after the shock. But now as she looked at Kevin, he didn't want to do anything bad to her, and she thought too much. She didn't dare to tell him that she was uncomfortable. In the past, she did not want to answer the question. When she wanted to escape, Kevin would always be very considerate and would not put pressure on her. Huh? But Kevin didn't intend to let her go off easy today. He must know what she meant. Kevin was still holding her, and this was the first time that he held her so intimately. Karen's brain was burning with thoughts, and she couldn't even find an excuse for Kevin. At this time, she wished she could grow a shell. As long as she hid in her shell, she would not have to answer. Kevin kept looking at her, focused and serious. He looked like he was using his eyes to say that if he did not get an answer, he would not let her go. She wanted to escape, but she couldn't. His arms seemed to be gently stroking her waist, but it was so strong that she could not get rid of it. After struggling, Karen simply gave up. She didn't know if she had lost her mind. With Kevin's gaze, she reached out and locked her arms around Kevin's neck and kissed him. No, she was not kissing him, but biting him. It was as if she was avenging herself for that night and returned to the pain. In terms of affection, Kevin did not have much experience, but in the business world, he was the top boss who could control the wind and rain. After a moment of hesitation, he snatched the initiative and fiercely kissed her. Thump, thump. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Nick Black pushed the door open and came in. President Kyle. The two people who were kissing were separated in an instant. Karen wanted to escape, but Kevin held her in his arms and said gloomily, "What's the matter?